Today, Evie and Brendan will be taking us through what you can expect during your first fitting and how to be prepared. So what is the first thing that you are looking at when that first sample comes in?
With the first fitting, we basically then need to assess fits of the garments. So at this point, we are not really looking at technical finishes. Obviously, we do want to know that the manufacturer is professional, but we're not assessing placement prints and embroidery and stuff like that. We are really just focusing on how the first pattern fits and on giving feedback about where we need changes made to achieve a better fit.
I would add to that you want to bring your paper trail along. Any flag concerns that probably cropped up through the back and forth process leading up to before you get that sample. So this could be something you were maybe concerned about the length of a dress or the fit of the bust. Have all of those things ready at the fitting so that you don't forget that. And then I would say also a checklist so that you stay within the theme of what you're assessing. So on that checklist, I would put proportion, fit, function, and quality. We could unpack that a little bit. So let's start with proportion. Do all the proportions match up to the CAD or the 3D render? Is the length sitting where it needs to be? Are the pockets in the right place? Is the collar width the right width, etc., etc.? On to fit. Is it how you imagined it?
And then once you try on the garment, what are some key differences that you need to pick up on once it's actually on a body?
We can refer back to the checklist. In this section here, we're looking at fit and function. So how does it behave on the body? Are the shoulders in the right position or are they swinging back? Are the side seams sitting where they belong or are they moving forward? From a function point of view, how was the garment to get into? Did the zip function correctly? Are the buttons in the correct place?
With fits, we are also looking at, is there any kind of like excess fabric that needs to be pinned out, taken away? Some brands have the objective of wanting very tight waistbands. Like if it needs to have tummy control, we need to see whether that waistband is actually tight enough. And if we tighten it, can that person still move around in it? In which case, sometimes a figure form is not enough. We would then also need to test it on a person. Then you're also looking at stress points, such as if you have a sleeve, can you actually move around in the sleeve? Is it pulling too much at the back, etc.? Your pattern might work in one type of fabric, but if you were to then cut it in a different fabric, you might not have enough ease built into there. You also need enough ease at the sleeve cap. The same goes for the rest of the garments. If you have pants, can you sit down in it? Ultimately, we are also trying to assess whether the manufacturer actually did interpret the design the way we intended it to be. For instance, we once did a fitting where the manufacturer just completely left out the gussets. They didn't pay attention. We made the pattern, but they didn't use the gusset pattern piece. The fitting led to the worst camel toe I've ever seen in my life.
For someone who's going through sampling for the first time, how should they prep and what should they have ready when they receive their first garments for fitting?
The first thing you should have is zero expectations. The only thing you should expect is for a garment to arrive, hopefully. Then the second thing is you should have a fit model ready or a figure form that suits the proportions of your brand's fits. It is obviously recommended that you already have that information beforehand. So if you have a friend who is the perfect size medium or size small, and that is the sample size you want to use, make sure you've got that person booked and on standby for your fitting. Also have a figure form that is similar to your sample size so that you can also do separate fittings if you can't rely on there being a person you can fit on. Then the usual is have some pins, have a tape measure, learn how to use your tape measure. You should also be ready to take videos, take photos, have some explanations on what you want done. We've also even had people draw with chalk onto the garment where they want lines changed. So if you want your waistband lower, draw with chalk and then measure the specific areas where you want it lowered, but also send photos of those areas. It is a good idea to ensure that you produce 2 of the sample and send 1 to your design agency. Some manufacturers prefer to also have a sample that they keep. When sample changes are communicated, everyone can be on the same page and measure it on their side as well.
I don't have much to add. I think you did cover everything. I would just add to your first points. I think arrive with an open mind. Your first sample is not going to be 100% correct. And that's part of this whole process.
When it's your first collection and you're excited for this first sample to arrive, there's extreme disappointment when the sample doesn't look the way you had imagined it to look. But that first sample is really a rough mock-up. And if you expect it to not be perfect, you can only be pleasantly surprised if it does arrive perfect. It's also important to budget for multiple sampling rounds. You can't just budget for one sampling round.
I think just to add to that, when you are expecting your first sample to arrive, is don't feel any pressure of having the exact terminology if you don't come from a fashion background. Just be honest and be specific and just say what you feel. The sleeve is too tight or the zipper is not sitting at the right place. If you are working with a design agency, we are able to translate all of your feedback into proper terminology for manufacturers.
Maybe also pointing out some unhelpful phrases. So something like, it's not right, or I don't like it. These are like unhelpful terms. I'd like to say, if you get to that kind of point, this is where the hard work begins. So you have to dig deep.
As you've said, a lot of first samples don't come out perfect. So what would you say are some things that tend to catch people off guard with their first fitting?
A client who doesn't have a background in fashion wouldn't be used to fabric behaviors and the disappointments that come with certain fabrics not behaving the way you hoped it would. An example is when a client is trying to replicate a style that they already own, like a garment that they bought in a shop, but that fabric can't be found or isn't available on the general market. So they have to opt for a different fabric. Then that style wouldn't behave the same as the one they already own because it's not the same fabric, doesn't behave the same way. Color can also be a big issue. If you are planning on custom dyeing your fabric, you would likely first test your garments in whatever stock fabric is available, which often can throw someone off when it's a color they don't like and they don't look past the color at the actual garment just as a fitted style, not as the end product. Likewise, if they do order the color they wanted, but they don't like the color, they can easily, again, be thrown off by the color to the degree that they don't focus on the important things in the first fitting, which is really the fit and behavior of the garment. Color is something that can be changed and fixed within the next few sampling rounds. Obviously, it's helpful to see the color that you ordered, but it should not be a deterrent for the rest of the process.
Yvi, I think you hit the nail on the head here, and you emphasize the fact that there's so many variables to focus on at a fitting. And I think that that's why it's important to keep the checklist nearby to make sure that you're covering all the bases. One thing we haven't really spoken about is the quality, and that can easily get left behind when you're focusing on the color of the item. So for the quality section, you're looking at how the garment's stitched. Are your finishes up to scratch? What does that neckline look like? What do the hems look like? How are the closures put together? Or any of the hems roping, or the neckline gaping? These are the kind of things that you're looking at for quality.
And then how do you take what has come up during a fitting and turn that into clear next steps for the manufacturer?
I think before you even do that, it's important to make sure that everyone in that call, in that meeting, or wherever the fitting is taking place is on the same page. So I would recap, go through everything from the beginning just to make sure that nothing's been left out and clear notes are being taken.
We will be creating a sample feedback form, which we keep updated with every sample round. In this form, we will add whatever instructions need to be added. We'll link videos that show the manufacturer exactly what we're talking about. If the client has anything specific they want to show, they will send images or videos. And then we also update the tech packs and the spec sheets, anything that needs to be changed accordingly, and send the latest version through to the manufacturer for the next round of sampling. If you don't have a background in fashion design and in garment construction, you can easily get sidetracked by how something fits on you versus how it will fit on the general target customer. If you had really large breast implants, but the rest of you is a size small, your t-shirt is going to fit differently over the bust than the general woman of your target market. And you need to, at that point, decide whether the fit on you is more important than your sales. It happened where, because the bust is putting tension on the garment, it can pull at the sleeve, but once you fit it on a different model, it fits perfectly fine. So it's important to be realistic about your own body and how your body is different to that of your target market, and not get confused with how you want something to fit on yourself.
And then just to recap, to have your checklist and follow that, because you can go off in a million different directions: proportion, fit, function, and quality.
Well, thank you guys so much for watching. That was really informative, and we hope that this helps anyone who is busy with their sampling or going into their first sampling, just to kind of prepare you for your first fitting. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and leave a comment down below if you have any other questions.